All right, let's talk about the rookies and their performances because that's the most important part. Hey, be a man, be a pro, get out there and save your all the nice stuff they say to you. The rookie quarterbacks to start week one. Suffice to say, Caleb Williams will start week one, right? That would be the biggest. Yeah,
that'd probably be the biggest shock if he wasn't out there week one.
I think it would almost have to be injured or like in jail to not start week one.
Oh my God, why you gotta put that man in jail, bro?
Yeah, what happened?
Well, I mean, like I don't know. You tell me.
All right, Jane Daniels, number 2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Check. He's gonna start.
He starts for sure, right?
Drake May.
I don't think Drake May. You think Drake May start? I don't think Drake May should start.
I think they'll start Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, right. I do too.
I will bet Drake May on that one.
By the way, on the Patriots and Drake May, really quick, how weird is it that they're conducting a GM search now?
I mean, it feels like Elliot Wolf has been acting as their general manager.
Right.
I know he's been up for it. So why not just elevate him? Maybe it's the way you got to feel like you got to prove yourself. You know, I'm not sure what the rationale is behind it, but I would think Elliot Wolf is in the best pole position to get it.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird to, and I just wanted to make a note of this because to me, it speaks to sort of the maybe some concerns you could have about how this franchise is being run now post Belichick era, in the sense that Elliot Wolf is the interim GM through the draft. If you're the interim GM, you're doing whatever you can to appease the people who might potentially hire you. Like you were basically being like, "Hey guys, what do you want?" Like, you're making your moves, but you're probably making your moves to make them happy, which I think is potentially a little concerning.
Well, hold on, it is, but at the same time, you don't want to make those moves purely to make them happy. Then all of a sudden, you get the job, and you're like, "Oh, what was I thinking?" Like,
or another team that could potentially want a GM. They see the moves you make, and they're like, "We can't hire you. We just saw what you just did in the draft."
I think Drake May was the right pick. I'm just saying.
Okay, and by the way, a little bit for the rationale as to why. Obviously, you took him number 3 overall. All right.
Yep.
It's hard to think that they're not going to, but for this reason too, they stuck there. They had a number of teams who tried to trade up with them, and they stuck there
for future first round picks too.
Right. So that says something to it, and it's no disrespect to Jacoby Brissett. He could easily go in and start and play well, and probably be able to immediately give them a level of veteran play that would be able to be more helpful winning. But you drafted the guy number 3 overall for a reason, man. You got to sell something to that fan base. And I think there's just too much behind that to not let him go in there and go play. Again, barring he's not injured or in jail too. Why don't we throw that in there too?
If Drake May beats out Jacoby Brissett, it'll be the first time he's beaten NC State in his entire life. So wow.
You couldn't wait for that one.
Over 2.
My thing is, Brady, are you not worried with his deficiencies, him starting too early and potentially ruining his career, especially with the lack of?
I would say the same thing about Jane Daniels, Caleb Williams. Like, you're worried about any young rookie starting right away. Like, you don't know what you don't know until you get into it. And that's the hard part for a rookie starting right away is you get in there and you're like, oh, like things switch up a lot faster. Defenses can do so much more throughout the course of the game than what you had or what you experienced in college. So, yeah, I'm worried about all those things. Like, would you rather let him sit behind a veteran like Jacoby Brissett, watch how he prepares week in, week out, watch how he handles the team, the sideline, all the operations, everything else that it means to be a starting quarterback in the NFL? Of course. Like, I think we'd all rather watch someone else touch the hot stove and then be like, ooh, that's hot. Like, I don't need to touch it because I want someone else to do it.
Some people still going to touch it, Brady.
And that's the problem is they got some other issues going on. But I think you get my point. Like, you'd rather, that's a luxury to have. And that's the position Michael Penix Jr. is in. So he's probably got one of the best shots to be able to go in there, not have to start. And, we'll see what he's capable of.
I think, I remember it's been so long, but I think with you and Derek Anderson, right? Wasn't it, you weren't holding out. There was because
we hadn't agreed upon terms yet, but yeah.
Yeah, you didn't agree upon terms. I know. We went over this. We've been over this before, and I think the phrase "holding out" has been applied. And as you correctly pointed out, it was the two sides couldn't agree on terms. But back then, teams could basically leak out, "He's holding out," and everybody would run with that.
They can still do it today.
Yeah, but the player can go on social media today and tweet and say like, no, "I'm not holding out. Like this is here's where we're at."
They didn't want me to start anyways, though. That's what they never.
That's what sort of I was getting at.
Yeah,
Okay,
it just took me a while.
Well, I just wanted to see if I could get you mad about the holding out thing.
No. But to your point, like a lot of people behind the scenes knew that, but obviously, they didn't. The whole thing was what it was. But like, I knew going into it, like Charlie Fry and Derek Anderson were who was competing for the starting spot. And the crazy thing to me was just how fast. Like you talk about NFL, like how you doing rookie or hey rookie moment. I mean, Charlie got benched our week 1 game versus Pittsburgh at home after everything that offseason preparing for. And then they put in Derek and then they trade him right after that. I was like,
crazy.
Whoa. Like,
was that when they traded him to Carolina?
I thought it was to Seattle. I could be wrong.
I think it's to Seattle. I think Seattle's right.
Yeah, but either way, like the thought in my head, honestly, was as all this is transpiring, I felt bad for Charlie. Yeah, that's how I reacted. I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Will Brinson, whoa!" But no, in all seriousness, I think I was going from like a public event where I found out, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Because someone asked me, and I was fortunately with Amy Palcic, who like called me, talked me through it. Because I'm like, I don't know how this all works. Like, how do we talk about this, discuss this? But in my back of my mind, what I wanted to say was, like, one, it wasn't fair to Charlie because you prepared him, basically gave him this small opportunity and then just ship him off. It's like, well, I would have gladly taken those reps. Like every one of those reps you were giving him through OTAs, minicamp, training camp, like I would have gladly taken those. So that was the tough thing about it, is like it wasn't like we missed a ton of practice or anything else in the beginning of training camp where we had agreed upon terms, but it was more of like, well, they probably would have done the deal if they thought there was a chance that I was actually going to play my rookie year, but they had 2 guys who they liked and they were having basically battle for it.
That is insane in hindsight. And I don't think you'd see it in the modern NFL where the first round drafted quarterback gets no reps at the expense of Charlie Fry and Derek Anderson, all due respect to those
different
2 guys. But like, it's insane that they set you back by doing that. And
I remember I came back, and obviously I was very aware of everything. And I told my agent, because my agent, I was like, look, you know this better than I do. And there's times when he was like, hey, they're not answering the phone, or it's hard to get in touch with them. Whether or not that was true or not, I don't know. Like only those parties know. But I told him, I was like adamant about making it back in time for the first preseason game. So I was back in time for it, but they were like adamant about not playing me. Like they were like, no, you're back, but we're not going to play you for this. That's almost crazy. As punishment, which I'm like, dude, we have 4 of these. Like, come on, give me an opportunity. I knew the last 2 I'd get more time, but those are some of the things, like looking back on it, you're like, man, that was just crazy how all that had worked out.
I think too, now it's because of the newer CBA and the newer offseason rules that it's like, you can't mess around with not giving rookie quarterbacks in particular every chance they get, which may be why we see Drake may end up starting. Penix, we don't think will start barring a Kirk Cousins injury or setback, right? I mean, that's like, correct. Can Penix possibly look good enough that they say, sorry, Kirk?
Hey,
you're not giving somebody $100 million for 2 years.
I don't know, my man. My man Penix can sling that thing. I don't know. Just saying. I mean, there's already heat. Can we just talk about this for a second? I know this is a side note, but it came out that Cousins decided to go with Atlanta because Minnesota told him they were going to draft a quarterback. And I'm sure you've already talked about that this week.
I heard that too.
No, we haven't actually.
Okay. So I look back on the decision, if that did factor into Kirk Cousins' head, like, well, I'm going to Atlanta. I'm going to a franchise that's going to give me a big contract, a lot of talent. It's my opportunity to really, really shine here and try to go win a Super Bowl here. But now looking back on it, you're like, man, you might have ended up in, I don't want to say a worse situation, because like the talent, the situation is great as far as like for him being a starter. But
correct.
I mean, they took a top 10 quarterback in Michael Penix, and they didn't really tell you about it till last second. So
exactly
all those things, I feel like, I don't know, maybe he should have stayed in Minnesota. He had a lot more equity build up, like with this Atlanta locker room and situation. If things don't look good early on and Penix does look better, it's not like you can revert back to like the past couple of seasons where you've played well for them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To me, it reminds me of a really, really, really expensive version of Matt Flynn and Russell Wilson, both in terms of the contract and the draft pick, where Russ was a 3rd round pick and Flynn wasn't given $100 million. But the presumptive logic was Flynn's going to be the starter here. Well, if Kirk Cousins isn't fully back from his Achilles tear, or he's struggling to really push the ball and to like throw to tight windows, and Penix is out there. I think it was like somebody used a phrase like, "What if Penix is out there throwing piss missiles all over the place?" And
which he can do.
yeah, and it's like, and he just looks better than Kirk Cousins. I mean, you
Kirk
have a
still
responsibility
just because the money is that crazy.
Okay. I mean, that's
like
usually how it works.
The Flynn thing was a little different. Like Flynn came out in my class. I was happy for him, and then that Russell Wilson thing happened, and I was like, "Damn, my guy Matt Flynn can't catch a break." I mean, he still got paid, right? But he never got he didn't get to extend his career because Russ took his job as a rookie.
Right. I mean, he still got paid. I mean, we saw, but I mean, it's I don't know. I think it's more likely than not that Cousins starts. But I agree with you completely, Brady. I not only do I think it's like I think he would have just never. I think he would have just figured out a way if he had known, if the Falcons had told him before the new league year started that they would consider drafting a quarterback at 8th overall, then I think Kirk Cousins would have figured out a way to do a deal with Minnesota before the new league year started because of that whole contractual stuff with the cap hit. And I think he would have gone back to Minnesota. And I think Minnesota would have passed on McCarthy at 11.
Maybe, because it sounds like in the report, at least, that Minnesota did talk about drafting.
No, they were taking a quarterback regardless. I think they put a succession plan.
It was more of like knowing the situation you're going back into in Minnesota. They're going to draft one too, and being blindsided by it in Atlanta. And I think the other difference is just the equity you've built up. The wild card too is just the family component. Is you uprooted your family, granted for a great contract, but you were assuming he would have got that in Minnesota too.
And it's not like he needs money. I mean,
well, okay, yeah, like that's the thing. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You always want more.
You always want some more now.
When people throw out that stuff, I'm like, well, yeah, because like once you get to $300 million, you're like, all right, now I want to make 400, 500. Like it's
of course, but right, but I'm saying that I don't think that. I mean, to a degree, the decision was about money because Minnesota didn't want to commit. But I think if all things were equal in terms of knowing that both teams were going to draft a quarterback and you were going to get. Yeah,
what do you know?
And I think it would have
maybe he never felt the respect from Kwesi and them because we talked about that before, Brady. Like in regards to not giving them the extension where they could have gave it to him last year, and then it's also his wife being
saying all things are equal. Will said all things are equal. Like I think he stays, but obviously that's the issue is it wasn't equal.
Yeah. All right. We mentioned Michael Penix, of course, with Kirk Cousins. I think that's the longest shot there. JJ McCarthy. Does he start week 1 or is it slinging Sammy Darnold?
I don't know if he does either. I feel like, look, outside of the turnover issue Sam Darnold had, he was darn good, man, at Southern Cal his 2 years.
That's the issue, the turnovers.
Right, and it's unfortunately plagued him, but I also feel like this is a really good spot. Like I feel like
for sure.
It's the best spot for all the rookies, but it's the best spot for a veteran trying to prove himself too. Yeah. If you got Justin Jefferson to throw to, Jordan Addison, like you got some
Hawkinson.
Yeah, you got some offensive linemen. Yeah.
So I don't know. Like this will be an interesting one only because I don't know that they will right away, but I feel like eventually JJ obviously will get his opportunity this year.
Correct.
I think that if you were going to pick, obviously Cousins and Penix would be the first, number one spot where you're like, this rookie doesn't see a single snap all season long. But then the number 2 would be Minnesota, where Sam Darnold plays. They win their first couple of games. The offense looks good. Flores has got the defense kind of cooking. You have Aaron Jones there now, too, who's a great receiving back. There's just a lot of weapons. Kevin O'Connell, a fantastic offensive-minded coach. It just feels like a spot where, yes, Darnold could hold him off for the entire year and Minnesota makes the playoffs, but also McCarthy could be the week 1 starter if he looks good. Bo Nix has to deal with Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. He's 24 years old. I don't see how Bo Nix isn't the week 1 starter with what Sean Payton invested in him. It's a classic case of follow the money. And they're like Zach Wilson and who did I say it was? Jarrett Stidham. Stidham. He likes Stidham, of course, but
I was about to say, I think Stidham has an outside chance to at least start this season.
Okay. To start at some point? Yeah, for sure.
I think it's Bo Nix, and it's based on the premise that the reason why they wanted Bo Nix was his maturity. They felt like he picked up the offense when they brought him out and tested with him really well. So if those are the intangibles that you're excited about, you'd have to think that like they're gonna make this work. And if I'm Sean Payton too, I mean that's what you're selling right now for this team. The whole entire thing last year was you moved on from Russell Wilson after that whole debacle. the fastest way of forgetting about that is you play the guy you drafted to replace him. If you play Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham and then you have this transition to Bo Nix, it's kind of like, all right, does Sean Payton still have it? Can he still
Yes.
his quarterbacks work? Because whoever you start outside of Bo Nix, he's not going to be playing well. That's why you're going to move on from him to Bo Nix, right? So like,
right.
I think that is somewhere in the back of Sean Payton's mind as this year becomes that crucial year in his tenure in Denver.
I think he needs Bo Nix to win that starting job and to play well.
Sure.
Because if he doesn't, to your point, people will start saying, was it just Drew Brees?